Inflammation and anxiety, right? What is the correlation? So, this is what we are going to be exploring with Dr. Lauren Cook. She is a therapist, speaker, author who helps with people's lives, right, with mental health. And she's author of two bestseller books. So just hang on 1 second while I get Dr. Lauren Cook with me. All right, so we are going to be talking with Dr. Lauren. She is going to join me in 1 second. And like I said, she has written books. Hello, Dr. Lauren. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing so well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Great to have you here.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. I'm coming to you from sunny Pasadena, California today.
Oh, amazing. Yes, we are in San Francisco, so great to connect. We are talking with Dr. Lauren. She is author of two bestseller books. She makes mental health very easy to understand. And we are talking today about the correlation of anxiety and inflammation. Something that you would like to add about yourself? I know I could go on and on for next 15 minutes about you.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Lauren Cook, and I'm so excited to have a conversation with people today about anxiety and inflammation. I can tell you, in the field of mental health and clinical psychology, there's so many great conversations happening about therapy and psychiatry. But I can tell you from just being in a program myself, there's so little conversation about nutrition and naturopathic homeopathic care and treatment. And I think it is such a lost opportunity. So I'm really passionate about integrating that into the conversation because I've seen it even in my own life that it has been life-changing, truly.
So when you say the word in naturopathy and homeopathy, right, and connection with the mental health and inflammation, you're talking about the inflammation in the body and how that is correlated with how anxiety, right? That's kind of how you're doing it.
Exactly. Yeah, really thinking about that gut brain health. Our gut
Yes.
has so many signals that go to the brain, and yet so often we keep our head and the rest of our body separate when really they're very interconnected. So that's why I think we really have to look at our nutrition, our exercise, what we're putting in our bodies, because it's honestly the most medicine that we're consuming in a day if you think of it that way. And so we want to be mindful about what we're putting in our bodies. It affects how our brain feels.
So what do you recommend that we should put in our bodies from the mental health perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can even speak to my own experience. I started working with a naturopathic doctor at the beginning of this year because I was experiencing panic attacks on honestly a weekly basis. And she put me on an anti-inflammatory program. It was pretty extensive for 21 days, but I really was able to see, and there's research that shows this, that, things like white bread, sugar, um, red meat, alcohol, caffeine, all these things can really have deleterious effects on our brain. And I really saw that for sure. I noticed that with sugar in particular, that white sugar, that really just spikes up the system where we can experience a lot of anxiety. And caffeine too, the jury's out on that one because there are some benefits of caffeine, but especially for those who are prone to anxiety, if you have an inclination to feel panicky, caffeine is just going to regulate that even more, uptick that, and then we get into that feedback loop of feeling more and more anxious, I find.
So, but here we are, we love going to Starbucks and having our latte. So how do you change a culture, right? I mean, that's kind of all we are all addicted to that.
I know, and it's painful, right? Like if anybody here listening has gone through a caffeine detox, it hurts, and I don't recommend it during daylight savings time to add on to it. But I'm a big advocate of tea drinking. You know, green tea does have a little bit of caffeine, and I will have that. But I found that cutting out the black tea, the black coffee, really helped bring down the anxiety. And I find that that can help a lot of people. It also just helps you sleep better too. For our friends listening today who are like, I am not cutting coffee out. All right, maybe you have a rule with yourself that you don't have coffee past noon, right? Because then it really affects your sleep. When we don't have enough sleep, we start to feel more depressed. We start to feel more anxious. It's all a spiral, right? And we can either
Yes.
spiral upward or we can spiral downward based on what we're doing with our bodies.
So tell us what you say in your books, that you do also talk about nutrition in your books, or it's only behavioral therapy?
My first book, The Sunny Side Up, is really a positive psychology book, really focused on how we can practice more gratitude. My second book, Name Your Story, is more about a focus of how do we have effective and healthy conversations about mental health with each other. And I do talk about self-care and how nutrition and sleep are huge parts of the process for self-care. I think a lot of times people think of self-care as like, the bubble bath and things like that. But self-care from a nutritional lens is actually really hard, right? It's much more convenient for people to go ahead and drive through McDonald's, right? Than to
Yes.
make a fresh, healthy salad.
Yes.
That's hard. And so I think we kind of have to reframe the conversation on self-care for people, that it's not always the easiest thing, but ultimately in the long term, it's the best and healthiest thing for your brain and the rest of your body.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your 21-day. You said you went through a pretty rigorous 21-day diet and you were having some panic attacks, because of deadlines, or all of us have that one way or another. So what did it contain, in the sense, like, did you need to eliminate? Of course, you talked about white bread, sugar. What else did you eliminate, and what did you replace it with?
Yeah, are you ready for the laundry list? It
Yes.
was a long list. So no eggs, no cheese, dairy, no red meat, so no pork or steak or anything like that. I was allowed to have chicken and turkey. No dried fruits that had sulfur in it, no nightshades, so no tomatoes, eggplants, potatoes, no peanuts, no citrus fruits. That was really interesting to me. So no lemons, oranges, limes. Obviously no processed and no fried foods. I got one little heart for that. I need the love. It was really hard. And, in full disclosure, I ate very unhealthily before this. I'm not proud to admit this, but hey, I would help keep McDonald's in business sometimes. And so it was a huge, huge change for me. But I think we get to the point when we're tired of suffering. And I was getting to that point with my anxiety where it was like, you know what? It's not worth it for me anymore to suffer to this level. And so I'm willing to make these changes. I'm willing to be uncomfortable with a shift in my diet. And I found a lot of healthier alternatives. I find that convenience is a big factor for me. So Daily Harvest was something that really helped me out, that I found of good use. And my partner was a big source of support too, as we took on those changes. I'm not on the full anti-inflammatory program now, but I have really kept a lot of it with me. Keep eating 20 grams of protein in the morning. That's really helpful for reducing anxiety. And then trying to get at least 3 colors in the food rainbow every day. I find that that's good buy-in for people who maybe were like me and maybe not eating as healthfully as they could.
So when you said, so what did you eat in the mornings? Like, you don't eat eggs. What kind of protein do you eat in the morning then?
Yeah, absolutely. I am eating eggs. I also really.
Okay, I think we're having some network issues. All right.
Oh, what? Can you hear me okay?
No, we missed it last.
Oh,
yes.
no, sorry, I cut out there. I was just saying that I would eat, let me. Am I good now?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're good to go.
Okay.
Yes.
I think the internet just went out. So I would say that I am eating eggs now, but at the time when I was on this full anti-inflammatory program completely, I would have ground turkey. I would have ground chicken breast. That was something that was helpful. I'd have really nice green smoothies with some protein powder in it to still get protein, and almond butter. Almond butter and I became good friends.
Okay, so protein could be like protein powder also. It doesn't have to be tofu or chicken or eggs, right? It could be protein powder as well. That's what you're saying. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then do you also recommend did you get yourself tested? For instance, like, did someone give you a GI test and see inflammation is high, and then there was a direct correlation to your anxiety at that time?
No, and I'm so glad that you bring that up. I wish that I could have done that. Here in California where I'm at, my naturopathic doctor wasn't seeing people in person because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Um, but we did do a blood work test, and that was hugely informative. I tell everybody now, all my clients, hey, go get your blood work done because there's such helpful data in it. And what we found through my blood panel is that my vitamin D was exceedingly low. And I think that's from being indoors this year. But
Yeah.
she said to me, you know, Lauren, you're at a seasonal affective depressive level, the way your vitamin D levels are looking. So we brought in a vitamin D supplement, magnesium, a B complex, and then I also take a tincture to help regulate my hormones and my mood. And that's been hugely effective. And can I tell you, I haven't had a panic attack in 2 months.
Yay!
I
So why
know.
did you have the panic attack? Because of COVID, that you were kind of locked up, or what was the reason behind it?
Yeah, well, so I'm very open about this. So
Okay.
I have a phobia. It's called a metaphobia, which is a phobia of vomiting. I've had it my entire life. People who know. And if you don't, then it might sound a little ridiculous, but phobias are really legitimate, and it was causing me so much distress. But what I was seeing this past fall is that the panic kind of took on a life of its own, and that's what it all comes down to with inflammation, right? It really builds on itself. And
Yes.
I was seeing that it was becoming more than my thoughts. My body felt like it was taking over, and that ability to go into the panic cycle was happening so quickly. Took a lot less to activate me. And that's when I knew, you know what, I really need to get some outside help, because I know the therapy tricks. I am a therapist,
Yes.
and the cognitive work is not enough. And that's
Yes.
sometimes what happens.
So the combination, so just to summarize, the combination of the cognitive therapy plus the nutrition therapy, that's what you are advocating, right? It's not just one thing that's going to fix all our mental health issues. It's also what you eat inside, and it's all kind of correlated, right?
It completely is. And I really recommend for people to integrate the full toolkit for yourself. Make sure you're getting sunshine, vitamin D, that you're going out to walk, that you're getting your heart rate up. You're thinking about what you're putting in your body. I do think for some clients that psychiatric care is the appropriate intervention, incorporating medication.
Yeah.
But I knew for myself in particular with my anxiety, I had taken anti-anxiety medication, and I felt like it was making the anxiety worse sometimes. And I was finding myself really wanting that to be my instant quick fix. And I knew that cycle was not a road that I wanted to take. So nothing against people who want to incorporate psychiatric care. Sometimes it's the necessary path. But for me personally, I wanted to incorporate other ways to wellness. And I found that to be more effective with less side effects, honestly.
So also mental health, it also depends on the severity of the mental health issues also, right? In the sense, like if someone is depressed, then they probably need more serious medicine is not, nutrition is not going to cut it. They probably need a
Right.
combination of more therapy and I don't know, some other medication for that matter, right?
Right, exactly. Something like an antidepressant, or certainly with clients with psychosis or bipolar. Um, Sometimes you really need that medication piece. So I'm all for that completely. And I love working with psychiatrists, but I think sometimes we need to have more people at the table for care. It's not just therapy or psychiatry.
Yeah.
Sometimes that nutrition piece can really make such a difference. And I think it allows the client to feel more empowered in their care too. They feel like they're doing something. And I think that's a good thing too.
Yeah, no, truly taking food as medicine, right?
Yes,
Yes. What
absolutely.
else would you like to tell or advocate, since you went through your own panic attack and you are a therapist on top of that, so
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'd love, for us to just take a few minutes and talk about some of the different ways to wellness. For
okay.
our friends tuning in today, there's so much research that shows that mindfulness can be really helpful for reducing inflammation in the body. And I think a lot of people feel like, oh, mindfulness is meant to be something so relaxing. But honestly, sometimes mindfulness is really hard to practice. And I think that's almost the better time to do it when it is challenging. Because then we're learning how to be in our bodies, not just when it feels comfortable to be in our bodies, but when it feels uncomfortable. And I think if we can start to sit with ourselves, we'll notice that we're not engaging in numbing behavior as much or other harmful behaviors. We have a lot more bandwidth for what our body's trying to tell us. So if there's any takeaways for our audience listeners today, 3 to 5 minutes of mindfulness today, take that time. And I think it is always worth that time.
All right. So mindfulness, proper nutrition, and then of course yoga, and breathing exercises, and then therapy, cognitive therapy or some other therapy. All these combinations, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's a holistic plan to wellness. It's not just one thing.
Yes, and then getting to the root cause of not just your body, but the mind as well, and it's all interconnected. Yeah.
Yes, it really is. They're not two separate things. They are very much connected. Yeah.
It's funny that we always used to treat our physical body as a separate thing before, a few years back, right? And the mental is kind of like a mental's out there, so we would just not correlate the two together at all.
Yes, no, completely. I so agree. And so that's something I'm really passionate about is bringing the two worlds together, right? Like, see, there we go. My app's back. Ayurveda even, right? Like that word was never brought up in my 6 years of getting my master's or my doctorate. I find that fascinating. So, bringing those two worlds together, I think there's a lot of opportunity for healing there.
Absolutely. Now, Ayurveda has a very, strict kind of like regimens as far as following a daily schedule according to the season. And it's beautiful the way it's written 5,000 years back and so applicable in today's world, to your point, right?
Right. Exactly. So, I'm all for helping people learn about these things and choosing the thing that feels best for them. But I think we have to be mindful of the stigmas that we hold, right? Like, I think there's a lot of stigma out there. I hear clients say, like, nutrition isn't going to help me feel better, or medication isn't going to help me feel better, right? Or therapy is not going to help me feel better. And until you actually try those things, we really don't know. So I'm always a big advocate of, hey, give it a shot. What do you have to lose? Be open to the process. And worst case scenario, you're going to learn something awesome and hopefully feel a lot better.
Yes. And there is hope. That's what we are trying to do, these sessions, to tell people that, there is hope, believe in yourself, and you can do it. You just have to get out there, and there is hope, there is help. There are resources to help you get out of anxiety or whatever issues you might have with mental issues, right?
Exactly. There is always hope. It always gets better. I'm living that experience myself, that it does get better. So I hope everybody hears that message. I really like to take a recovery-oriented look at care, that our symptoms don't define us and that we can still have incredibly meaningful, enriching lives, even with having symptoms sometimes.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your personal story. This is so amazing.
Oh, well, I'm so glad we got to spend some time together. I'm excited to share this with our communities and really appreciate the conversation today.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all the viewers. Listen to the personal story and get motivated and inspired. And you can do that too. Thank you. Signing off now. Bye-bye.
Bye.